Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 6 of Maimonides on Teshuvah, the 40-day program of self-transformation as outlined in the incomparable Mishnah Torah by Moses Maimonides. There it is. It's my translation of it. Well, here we go. So here we're on day 6, and we're on Halacha 2.4. And Rambam, of course, is an abbreviation for Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Moses, son of Maimon. He here provides a list of ways to achieve Teshuvah, ways to achieve that repentance that results in atonement, which is not a comprehensive list, but is nevertheless a very useful starting point, and gives some general categories. It goes like this. The paths to Teshuvah include the following. The master of Teshuvah will perpetually cry out to God with tears and petitions. Okay, so item number 1 is prayer. He will give as much to charity as he can afford. Number 2, charity. Number 3, he will distance himself from the thing that brought him to sin. So element number 3 here would be avoidance of temptation, or creating strategies that keep you away from that thing that causes difficulty. Like, for example, if you're having difficulty with something easier by comparison to some of the really deep-seated changes, but nevertheless giving us a sense of the challenges involved. Let's say you're trying to lose weight. Well, avoid putting that ice cream in the freezer, because once it's in the freezer, it's too easy to get at. So number 3, third category of behaviors here are just avoid the temptation, find strategies to avoid it. Now here's number 4 is interesting. He will change his name as if to say, quote, I am another person. I am not the person who behaved that way, unquote. So it's an interesting kind of strategy here. In fact, in Jewish practice, it is not at all uncommon that if a person is, God forbid, very ill, they will have a formal ceremony to change that person's name, usually by adding a word like Chaim, life, or Refael, healing, something like that, or alter, the elderly, meaning that this change of name is kind of like a sort of prayer expressed to give a person longer years. And the meaning of it, as Maimonides, one of these strong rationalists would argue, is not like some kind of mystical, spooky, hocus pocus thing, but rather it is the sense of, we want to create an environment where a person looks at him or herself differently. So I am not the person who did those things. I am a changed person, and in that merit of Teshuvah will merit longer life. Finally, he will change his behavior and put himself entirely on the good and correct path. He will exile himself from his home, because exile atones for sin, since it causes him to be lowly, humble, and of contrite spirit. This last element, exile, is fascinating, and I know it because with an academic career, I've moved around a lot, and every time you go to a new place, nobody knows you, and you don't have the same kind of comfort level, and you're worried about your behavior, you're worried about standing out inappropriately, and it brings you to Teshuvah. So there is an idea of exile as a kapara, exile as an atonement, that was actually actively practiced by many rabbis in the 19th century in particular. Okay, let's do the next halacha for day 6. It is very praiseworthy to confess in public and let one's sin be known to others, revealing one's transgressions against other people, saying, quote, I have sinned against this person committing this act, and today I regret it. So there's a tremendous amount of rabbinic ink spilled on this particular passage. In general, the idea here is we're only talking about sins between people as opposed to sins between a person and God. Like, for example, getting up in shul and giving a clap on the bima and saying, I ate 12 lobsters last week. It's not exactly going to endear you to the population in the synagogue as a whole, and it sort of brings down the overall tenor of the services. So the idea here is if Reuven sinned against Shimon, then there are circumstances in which it's a good idea for Reuven to step forward and say, you know what, I did the wrong thing by Shimon, to Shimon. I'm going to make financial restitution, and I really apologize to Shimon publicly for my misdeeds. That's a strong act of Teshuvah. What would not be included, however, is some kind of confession that embarrasses Shimon. Like, let's say, for example, Reuven were to say, I used Shimon's toothbrush 7 times and he never realized it, and he went ahead. That's kind of a strange example, isn't it? I can think of better examples, but I don't want to put them on the internet. If Reuven were to confess to sinning against Shimon in a way that embarrassed Shimon, then he would not be achieving Teshuvah. He would in fact be compounding his Aveira, his wrongdoing. So it doesn't include those things. Sinning against God, and it does not include confessing sins against another person that would cause them embarrassment. Anyone who is arrogant and will not admit his sin, attempting to hide his transgression, does not perform complete tshuva. As it is written in Proverbs, one who hides his transgressions will not succeed. Mechaseh psha'av lo yatzliach. Under what circumstances does this apply? When dealing with transgressions between people. Transgressions against God, however, should not be made public, and it would be brazen to do so. On the contrary, one must specify one's sins against God only in private, and use generic language when not confessing in public. It is better for a person not to reveal his sins, as is written, praiseworthy is the one who bears his transgression, whose sin is hidden. So in other words, there's kind of a tension between these two verses. On the one hand, certain kinds of sins are appropriate to confess publicly. Other ones are better just to keep to yourself and express them privately to God. Okay, that's it for day 6. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll speak to you, God willing, tomorrow.